Hello everyone, this is Larry Shaffer here at the corporate offices in Kingwood, and welcome today to our 12th edition of the Mission to Marketing podcast. Today I have a special guest I'm going to introduce to you here in just a moment. We're going to look a little bit deeper into some of the things that are going on in our marketing department, and you may not even totally realize some of the changes that we've been working on pretty hard for the last year. And it goes to really how we get the work done internally here in our marketing department. The environment that we call it is our agile environment. I'm going to introduce to you JaNette Connell, who's our Managing Director of Marketing, Events, and Corporate Travel. And JaNette's going to take us a little bit deeper into what's been going on and some of the improvements and really what we expect for the future. So welcome, JaNette.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit more about what's behind this move to the agile environment.
So back in January of 2017, our marketing leadership team began to recognize some opportunities for improvement. And when we went down that path, we actually started interviewing some stakeholders and getting their desires and needs for us. And we identified actually a whole list of things that our team could do to improve. One of those which resulted in our transitioning to the agile system or way of operating. Over the course of probably the last 10 years, the company has seen such explosive growth. It's been changing so fast, but the marketing department itself had not really changed the way that it was operating. And so we were struggling with how to prioritize work that was coming through. Our stakeholders, inside the company were asking for us to move faster than we were capable of. We didn't have the time really to dig deep into projects in the way that we wanted to, and so what we were delivering wasn't perhaps to the quality that we knew we were capable of. So we went down this process, and one of the results, as I mentioned, out of the list of many, was to move to an agile way of operating.
Good. So, well, first of all, you did something that's pretty significant, and it's not always easy to do, but you went out to all the stakeholders and you asked for very honest and candid feedback. And you got to be prepared for what you hear.
Yeah, some people told me not to do it.
Yeah, okay. But you got to kind of be prepared for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yep. And there was probably all three of those. There's some good things that we're doing, some things that we could improve, and a few things that we really needed to significantly improve. But what I think is really cool is that you took all that feedback and we found a system that I think addressed most of it, if not all the things that we needed to really become a premier marketing department. Mm-hmm. So describe the agile system in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so I would say in the simplest form, the agile system is about a team of individuals that are working together towards a common goal. And for us, we work in cycles and or sprints, and that allows us to stay really focused for our team members, specifically for our creative team members who are filled with our designers and our writers, developers, a video team. They have a very clear understanding of what they're going to accomplish in 2-week cycles. A lot of people have heard or might be familiar with the term agile as it relates to the software development side of the house, and our IT department does an incredible job. If you ever walk by and see them kind of huddling, you'll see a lot of the similarities between our two departments. The biggest difference between agile and the IT department and agile and the marketing department is that we have a lot of unknowns that come through marketing in that 2-week cycle. So we have to plan for, quote unquote, the unknown. Mm-hmm. It could be as simple as a law changes, on a Thursday, and we need to communicate something out to a client, clients on a Tuesday. We have social media or PR opportunities that come up within that 2-week cycle. And so we want to be in a position to be able to respond to those types of situations quickly, whereas in the software area, and there might be some software developers on this
might be listening
who might disagree a little bit with me, but in general, they their cycles don't change, and they have stability in terms of what they are trying to complete during that time period. So they complete something, they test it, release it, and can do some iterative changes along the way, where we don't necessarily have that opportunity every 2 weeks. So we're not at what I would say would be our optimum, performance level yet, but we've made huge strides, and we're moving towards that every day.
So sometimes our deadlines may be pretty quick, quick turnaround, or maybe even deadlines change in the middle of a project.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the scope changes because something in the marketplace, shifted that we couldn't have planned for.
So take us a little bit deeper into how it works, almost on a day-to-day basis.
So for us, there's a couple processes that we go through. So the first step is about evaluating the request. And, as a marketing organization, you are asked to do a lot of things that we always want to say yes to, but at the end of the day, we have limited, hours and bandwidth and resources. So part of our effort in moving towards this is really evaluating the requests that are being asked of marketing and determining where does it fit in terms of achieving the company's overall business objectives. Does the potential ROI for that request really justify the amount of production hours that might be required for the team to execute it? And then the second step for us is once we all agree that it's the right action to take, then we go through a process of contexting with our stakeholders. And so that's about identifying, as best as we can, everything that's going on in their world related to this particular project or experience. And it's, identifying what are the risks that we might encounter as part of this project. What are the desired outcomes? Who needs to be included, in the approval processes? From our perspective, we work with a lot of different people inside the organization, and you can't possibly please every person every time. So identifying who those key stakeholders are is important for us to be able to move through our process quickly. And then identifying what does, quote unquote, done mean. Because some people may think, a quick brochure or a one-sheeter is considered done and they'd be happy with that. And then others may want something perhaps more expansive or interactive. So identifying that is really important. And then once we complete the contexting, then we go through the road mapping, and that's where we really begin to define what does success look like as it relates to particular deliverables. So, what kind of assets might we need in order to complete a project? What are the number of hours that different disciplines are going to need? Again, writers, designers, digital team members, developers. What kind of hours is it going to require? And then can we actually complete everything that we put on the board? Can we actually complete it within that time period? And does that meet the objective or the goal that that the stakeholder has based off of their larger project that they're working on? And it's not uncommon for stakeholders to underestimate the amount of effort that goes into projects, and this podcast could be one of them. Or putting together a brochure. A lot of individuals who may not be as closely tied to this process will say something like, make it look pretty, which just puts a knife into a creative team member's hearts, because there is a lot of strategy and thoughtful process that goes into this. And so the contexting and the road mapping really allows us to bring a stakeholder into that process, into our world, so that they can understand the full scope of what we're trying to achieve.
So one thing I wanted to add is that there may be many, a lot of folks that just kind of assume that we work with sales. In other words, we create marketing materials so BPAs can sell stuff. But you keep on saying stakeholders. Who do you mean? Who else are the stakeholders that bring projects to us?
So it could be virtually any individual at any level inside of the organization.
Any department, and
any
even
department.
Down into,
Yeah, so our team works on any given 2-week time period. We're working on 200 different projects throughout the company. So some of those are self-initiated projects that the marketing team is working on to generate leads. Some of it could just be maintenance type things that just have to be done. So improvements to the website, improvements to event activities that we're doing. But it really could come from a host. And as part of this, as part of the interviews that we conducted, one of the things that we realized is that marketing, much like probably legal, we're probably the only two departments that really see everything that's going on inside the company. And so we find ourselves in a unique position to be able to connect some dots sometimes when different parts of the organization are moving really fast, and sometimes they're not realizing that the right hand and the left hand could be working on the exact same project or effort, and those requests are coming through us. And so we have a great opportunity to help connect people and increase the efficiency.
So going back to the processes that you were talking about, we used to have, I guess I'll call it a critique. We used to have a critique that we just took orders, and went to work. And when we did that, when all these stakeholders that you're talking about come to and they have an idea of what they want, and then we try to do it, quite often what would happen is it would fall short of expectations, or it wouldn't be exactly what they wanted. We didn't ask too many questions. We just kind of took the order and did it.
Yeah.
This whole process turns that completely upside down, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it brings awareness into the priorities that the team is working on, right, to make sure we're working on the right things for the business. And then two, as part of this, we also divided the creative team into two different groups. So we have Part of the team is focused on prospect-facing programs such as, and we call them Team Attract, if you will.
Attract, okay.
And then we have another team that's focused on retention. So the two ways we make money as a company, attracting and retaining, and that team is called Team Retain. And so by doing that, we were able to put team members, to give them greater focus on one particular side of the business, which allowed them to connect dots that they previously weren't able to do. They probably work on 3, 4, 5, some of them more than that, different projects in a day. And so can you imagine if you had to jump from knowing at a very deep level something about the sales side of the house, and then you have to transition to perhaps the client retention side, and then maybe you're transitioning to a community involvement program, and then you're jumping back in. It was too much for the team to really have enough time to be able to get deep into the work and make good recommendations back to the stakeholders.
Good. And so by moving away from but just taking orders, but receiving a request and then partnering with those stakeholders to go deeper in the evaluation of it, our stakeholders are finding a lot of value in it because we're asking a series of questions that helps them to think deeper about what they're actually trying to accomplish.
And challenging them.
And challenging
right?
them how it fits into the overall corporate strategy and the prioritization. But we're doing it in a way that benefits that stakeholder.
Yes.
Well, what have the results been like?
I'll give you a good example, was with mid-market and also with WX. We were able to take some pretty complicated, multifaceted programs, and we were able to complete them in a very short period of time, whereas in the past it would have taken us 2-3 months probably to complete the amount of effort we did. In the case of the Allstate mid-market program, and then with WX, we were able to turn around those materials quite quickly. But we also had a high level of engagement from the stakeholders who were impacted, but also from our legal team who just jumped in and helped us expedite things along the way.
Work gets done in a 2-week cycle. Why is that? What's the significance of the 2-week cycle process?
So for us, it's about creating focus. It's 1 week is not long enough for a lot of things to get completed in marketing. 2 weeks seems to be the right amount of time. Again, we only started the cycle process in the early part of May, so we may tweak that as we go. But for right now, 2 weeks seems to be the right amount of time for us to be able to complete deep work, get things through approvals appropriately, and produce something of quality.
Just in summary, any other things you'd like to add? Any kind of summary in regards to the ultimate benefits to Insperity?
So I'll add one thing, and then I'll go into the benefits. One thing also to know is that this process has also allowed us, just as a team and as a department, to be able to communicate in a way that we could not before. And an example of that is our daily check-in. So every morning at 8:30, all of our managers and our discipline leads, our account managers get together, and we help to set the priorities for the day for the team. So if something has come in out of cycle, or if there's an emergency or a particular hot job, if you will, that comes in, then we are taking a look at what's on the plate for the rest of the team for that day, and we're removing things so that they can be focused for the day. The second thing that happens is every day at 9:05, the creative team themselves are meeting and getting together. So that team attract and that team retain. And so there's a high level of accountability in that process. There's a high level of transparency. And if team members are struggling, or if they have a roadblock, managers at that point it becomes apparent, and a manager has an opportunity to step in and help. Versus in our old way of operating, could have been a couple days, maybe even a couple weeks before we recognized that we had some issues. So I would say the ability to work as a team has helped us. The system has helped us grow together that way. And then I would think, or I would say overall, from a company perspective, for us, we're able to just operate at a much deeper level, which means that the quality of the work that we're producing for the company, much less the stakeholder that we might be representing, is much better. And we're able to keep, attract our own and retain our own employees in a way that we perhaps weren't able to do previously, because they are more involved in the work that they're doing. But I would say that no system alone does this. You have to have the right people, and you have to have people who are committed and open and are willing to be vulnerable through this type of change. And I would say our team has done a remarkable job of being open and raising issues as they come up. We used to be, I can say this in retrospect, I don't know that I would have said this 2 years ago, but I would say in retrospect, we were a group of individuals who really came in, we liked each other, we might have sat in the same area, and so on an org chart, we were considered a team and a department, but I would say going through this process, we're definitely more of a team today, helping each other, because at the end of the day, we all win together and we all lose together.
And this wasn't a process that we introduced a year ago and said, here, read this book or read
Good
this
luck.
manual. Okay, that's not what happened at all. No. There's been ongoing, pretty intense, very intense training periodically over the last year, correct?
Yeah, so we started this process back in October, and every team member has gone through, I would say, a total of probably 4 weeks now of work, and then managers and directors probably another week and a half of work on top of that. But it's a constant, we're still tweaking, we're still finding areas of improvement, and in many cases the Agile system has also been a way for issues that have always been there. It has really just put a spotlight on them, which means that we're able to now all be aware of them in a way that we weren't previously, and we're able to address them much faster because now they're out in the open versus in our old way of operating. One or two people might see an issue, but it wasn't perhaps dealt with because it wasn't, at least it didn't appear to be creating a pain point for an entire organization.
Well, I am personally just so proud of our people. They've embraced this concept and have gone through hours and hours of training, and I kind of see two things. They have a better work process that provides a better product and better deliverable to all of our stakeholders, which ultimately benefits Insperity in a significant way. And then number two, they have been equipped and have embraced a better way of thinking, of processing challenges, processing new opportunities, new orders. And so it's very exciting. And the results have been significant so far, and we feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in our culture, we are a culture of individuals who are very nice. And sometimes when you are trying to challenge an idea or challenge a concept, it's hard to do that, especially if the stakeholder is of a certain title. And what I love about this process is that when you walk into a contexting session or a road mapping session, everyone is on equal ground. And
That's
when
great.
that happens, the conversations are so much better.
That's great.
So it's been tremendous.
Good.
For us.
Well, JaNette, thanks for sharing this with us, updating us on what's going on. And to everyone out there, thank you again for listening. And stay tuned, and we'll be back with the next session sometime soon. And this is Larry Shaffer saying thank you for joining us today.